Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Muslim Podcast. In today's episode, we will be diving into a critical and relevant topic, the challenges of being Muslim in Western society. For many Muslims living in Western countries, balancing their faith with the demands of influence of the borders society can be difficult, from issues of identity and belonging to facing stereotypes and Islamophobia. The experience of being a Muslim in Western comes with its own set of challenges. Today, we will explore these challenges and discuss ways Muslims can stay true to their faith while navigating a world that may not always understand or accept Islamic values. Before starting our episode, let me welcome our guest for today, Sheikh Dr. Mohi Abdel Ghani. Welcome, Sheikh. Let's start by the first question. What are the biggest challenges Muslims face in maintaining their religious identity while living in Western societies?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أفضل الصلاة والتسليم. When we talk about Muslim challenges in Western societies, we have first to recognize that the challenges are different for different Muslim segments.
Mhm.
There are some common challenges and there are some unique challenges. So you can talk about first generation immigrants, you can talk about second generation born here,
Mhm.
you can talk about Muslim converts or our African American brothers. They are facing completely different, sometimes different challenges, but there are common also set of challenges.
Yes.
So when we talk about the common challenges first, the society values sometimes are at odds with our values. Individualism, for example, is a heightened value. Materialism, secularism, all of these are values that are
Affected on the Muslim.
that are at odds with our Muslim values.
Yes.
Islamophobia and stereotyping is another challenge that faces, sometimes even the political landscape, like with the latest in this last year, for Congress, for example, to adopt a resolution that anti-Israel is anti-Semitic is illegal. Now they're trying to put limits on our efforts, and our conscious, where we are required to call for social justice. Now they're trying to, in the state of Texas, you cannot get a job with the government unless you pledge that you are not taking part in any boycotting of Israel. So they are now institutionalizing.
So they make it officially.
Some of these things. We have other challenges, like as Muslims, how to raise our kids in this society while preserving their identity, their faith, their values, right? There are so many misconceptions within the media about Muslims.
Yes.
So all of these are challenges that the Muslim at large are facing. Now, different demographic and different group has different set of issues.
Exactly. Yes.
That, I don't know if you want to get into it now or
Yes.
continue.
I'm in it.
Okay. So for example, when you talk about first generation immigrants, and obviously the landscape have changed over the years, their first is trying to establish life, meaning whether they're here for education or work or whatever, make a living, learn the language, understand the societal norms, and figuring their way in. These are completely different set of challenges than our kids who are born in this country, who are trying to reconcile between what they're being taught at home and Islamic centers and the schools and their friends and their colleges and the larger society, for example.
Mhm.
Converts have a different
Exactly. Yes.
set of
Mhm.
issues altogether, where they're sometimes being shunned by their larger family. They feel lonely. There is sometimes mosques are not offering them the services they need, and they are find themselves
Suitable program for them.
they're finding themselves basically somewhere in no man's land, kind
In
of
the
thing.
middle. They cannot
Yes,
return back and they cannot go forward.
exactly. So these are completely different challenges of different
Mhm.
segments
Yes.
of the society, of the Muslim community.
Okay, so how do Muslims navigate the sense of belonging in society where Islamic value may not always align with the mainstream culture?
Okay. So I'm going to start actually with a personal experience, because sometimes when you talk about personal experience, it really this is something you have gone through
And you feel it by
and you
yourself. Yeah.
feel it. So I came to the U.S., or I resided permanently in the U.S. I came before that, but I resided permanently in 1982. So it has been 42 years,
Mhm.
right? I can tell you, probably the first 4 or 5 years, you are living here with your body, but your heart and mind and everything else is kind of back home.
Yes,
I think a switch flips when you start, when your language improve, maybe when you start dreaming in English or something.
exactly.
It's so it is really first few years it's very hard,
Yes.
because you still are
You're still belonging to other place.
to other
Yeah.
place
Yeah.
before you really adopt your new home and
Mm.
feel like you belong here, right?
Yes.
So that's one of the things
You're
that
talking about me now.
that's everyone, by the
Yeah.
way, at least first generation type of thing. Now, when we talk about our children,
Mm.
for example, they have a completely different issues, because they feel like, okay, they're taught at home, you are Muslim first, and this is your identity, and this is your values. But to fit in with their friends, within the school or the college, to uh, we are social beings.
Yes.
We cannot be just alone.
Hmm.
This is the way Allah created us, in a way.
Yes.
So sometimes that's also a challenge. So that's why creating some environment for our children with other families that share the same values.
Hmm.
Doesn't have to be the same cultural background or the same
But at least
ethnicity.
they have
At
the
least
Islamic
the same basic value system
exactly. Yes.
is very important,
Hmm.
actually, to really get them to survive and don't feel like fully oddballs and strangers in the society, right? So obviously, Islamic centers and masajid and are critical part of
You're gonna go to this. Yeah.
giving some sense of belonging to a community. But also, we really have to put efforts to make this our home.
As parents.
No, as Muslims in general.
Mhm.
So advocacy, for example, interfaith efforts, and trying to deal with many of the misrepresentation about our faith and our deen, and interacting with the community at large, and not just living in a ghetto.
Mhm.
you know, uh, is actually, these are important things to start feeling we are part of this society
So,
we are living in, and we belong.
so first to create the society and then put the belonging to this society in our kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good to put it in bracket, because creating the society, I believe it's our responsibility as the elder people.
Yes. And Alhamdulillah, actually, if you really think about it, even the generation before my generation, the people who came to this country in the 1960s and 70s,
Mm.
they established so many institutions and
Yeah,
they
actually.
put the seed
Mhm.
that every generation is building upon
Yeah.
for the next generation. So I recall again in the 80s, maybe in the entire state of New Jersey, there was a handful of Islamic center can be counted in one hand.
Yes.
Now, now it's like
No,
every,
mashallah, yeah.
yeah, as an example,
Yeah.
right? So alhamdulillah, so there is a lot of progress, but also when you talk about sense of belonging, again, we are not homogeneous in terms of there is people who come here who are intent to make this their home.
Yes.
They learn the language, they get education,
They melt in this
they
society.
without losing their identity, but
Yeah.
they are, but there is others who really are staying at what I call isolate or take an isolationist form.
Yeah.
And they don't mix with anyone. They're not talking. They have no interest in even learning what's going on culturally or politically or societal level,
Mhm.
and they stay sometimes their entire life on the margin. Which is problematic, by the way.
They are away
And
from
it doesn't make you feel good, by the way, because you are isolated in a
Yes.
way. Uh, so I think our second generation have less problem in terms of sense of belonging.
Mm.
They actually are Muslim Americans, period. They
Mhm.
don't have attachment to the home country their
Yes.
parents have come from as much. This is the only home they have known, and they probably have more willingness and courage and no language barrier and no cultural barrier
Mhm.
to really uh, put the efforts to make this really my home and reconcile their values with the society at large with confidence with.
But do you believe that
But
in
again,
yeah.
this is the good segment of
Yes,
there
exactly.
is another segment that gives up altogether and just abandon their. How many times you hear, yeah, my parents are practicing Muslims but I am not, or something. And unfortunately we don't have any statistics, by the way.
Mhm.
We have a lot of good field statistics about how many people converting into Islam, but we don't have any statistics about how many of our younger generation not practicing Islam or or leaving the fold. And
We are trying to look at in the good way that we have.
yeah, but I mean, but both realities exist
Yes.
and needs effort to be addressing them.
Mhm. So, can the experience of being a Muslim in a Western society strengthen one's faith, and if so, how?
My answer is absolutely yes.
Mhm.
And I'm going to start again with my personal experience. Um, I was born in Egypt, right? I come from a family, they pray, but that's, I mean, they were not carrying Islam on their, like a, on their sleeve, like as a banner or
Yeah, as
something,
most of us.
just
Yeah.
as most of us. And you don't feel back home that your deen is challenged. You're hearing the adhan from 7 directions 5 times a day. Uh, Everything around you reminds you of your
Support from the family,
yeah.
friends,
Everyone is
everything.
fasting. Everyone is praying. Everyone is, So there is really, in general, you don't feel there is a challenge facing your faith.
Yes.
Then you come here, and again, I was 22 years old when I came here, and I face this stark reality. And at that point, for some, with the grace of Allah, I realized one of two things: either I'm gonna stick to my faith very hard, or I'm gonna melt with the society at large, and it's a distinct choice. I felt there is no going with the flow anymore. There is no flow to go with
Yes.
anymore. So so
But the two
actually,
examples we face every day
correct.
here.
So I actually start being more religious
Alhamdulillah.
than in Egypt.
Yeah.
I start being eager to learn more about my deen, that I didn't spend the effort as much
In Egypt, yes.
in Egypt. Remember, when you are praying here, for example, there is no reminder of prayer. So now your prayer is not a habit, is intentional prayer.
Yes.
Every act of faith you do here, it's actually you're facing challenges to do it with, you know.
Your inner motivation is
Yeah.
moving
So
you.
so basically, I feel your relationship with Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, your faith is being strengthened, because you know you always say hardship builds character.
Exactly. Yes.
So when your faith is challenged, like the early Muslims,
Mhm.
they stuck hard to it.
Yes.
When your faith is not challenged and everyone is just fine, so you kind of don't feel the threat
You're
to
in the
your
neutral
faith or your identity.
Yeah.
So you know, so I think devotion, sincerity, intentionality, these are things that actually strengthen our faith. One other important thing,
Mm.
back home, regardless which country you come from,
Mhm.
religion is taught in a traditional way.
Yes.
There is one school of thought, and you are subjected to that, and this is it. Now you come here, you want to learn your religion. There is truly freedom in terms of exposure to 10 different schools,
Mhm.
right? So you actually, your knowledge and you become more open-minded and more exposed to different
To accept
Islamic
more,
thoughts.
Yeah, more Islamic thoughts.
And more or different traditions,
Mhm.
not just one way, or you know.
Even cultures.
Yeah, but I'm
Same.
saying when we talk about faith, so actually, in my opinion, you become exposed and more tolerant
Mhm.
to other ideologies within the fold of Islam, to other schools of thought within the field of within the domain of Islam, and also more knowledgeable than if you are just put in that closed environment where this is the official narrative and
Mhm.
this is Islam and this is it. Here you see 10 different Islams.
You find it wider than what you
It
thought.
is a lot more. So your exposure and your knowledge,
Will be more.
which will help your faith, because knowledge and faith go hand in hand.
Exactly.
So there is a lot of benefit actually
Yes.
to your faith living in this society, that beyond, you know, a lot of people don't see it first, you know, look, but actually
When you go deeper, you're
when
gonna
you go
find,
deeper,
yeah.
you find it.
Yes, I agree with you, and it's all also about intention. This
Yes.
is your way that you choose. I mean,
Correct. Yeah, exactly. It's not a habit. It's not because you're what your neighbor and your parents
but
will
I find,
say,
I find my
or
parents, my
this.
elder
Yeah, exactly.
brothers doing this, so I'm gonna do
Yeah,
it.
you are actually at odds with significant segment of the society every time you practice your faith in public or.
Yeah, especially praying.
Yes. Yes.
So, how do younger generation of Muslims balance the influence of Western culture with their Islamic upbringing?
So one of the things, by the way, when we talk about Western culture, Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "Al-hikmah dallatul mu'min, anna wajadaha akhadha biha." Meaning, wisdom is the universal goal of the believer. Doesn't matter where it's coming from.
Mhm.
There are definitely many good things in a Western culture that we should encourage our kids to adopt. And there are things that are destructive that we should avoid, but we need to pick and choose. I give you an example. Respecting time. You know, how many times you hear about 6 o'clock standard Arabic time or standard Middle Eastern time, which means from 6 to 10 p.m. or something, right? Here, 6 o'clock is 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Working hard.
Mm.
You find, for example, there was some statistics that really shocked me, that in the Middle East, no particular country, on average, the productive hours per day in work is 15 minutes.
Yeah.
While here, when you put 8 hours, it's as honest to God, 8 hours,
Yeah.
right? So there are, in terms of education, I think, you know, you will find that many or majority of Muslim families put a lot of emphasis. As a matter of fact, many immigrants come here and they leave relatively comfortable position to give better education for their kids. So emphasis on education.
Yes.
So there are good things in this society, in Western society, that we can embrace.
Yes.
And there are bad things that we need to avoid. And I think our youth, our younger generation, the smart ones, they balance very well between the family values, between the
Islamic values.
Islamic thought and values,
Mm.
and they take what you call the best of
Everything.
everything.
Yeah.
That's one way of doing it. They also are more successful in building bridges because you have no language or cultural barrier. Building bridges between their faith and the society at large than the first generation, right? They are at ease with that and they can do that successfully. They also are, we kind, respectfully come here with some level of intimidation. We never practice any political freedom or any free expression
Yes.
because again, many of the Muslim countries, without naming one,
Mhm.
don't encourage that. Here you find our
Don't permit
younger,
that.
our younger generation are actually more
Opening for
more
this.
confident
Yeah.
in playing a role and expressing themselves.
Now, we saw that recently
exactly.
yes.
In advocating for social justice,
Yes.
in using social media effectively.
Yes.
So all of these, they are actually doing at least
What we wish to do in the past.
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So moving to the next segment, which is Islamophobia and stereotypes, and this is very important topic. What are the most common misconceptions about Islam in Western society, and how do these impact Muslim individuals?
First of all, we all know that many people, Islam in their mind is synonymous with violence and terrorism.
Yeah.
That was established. There is clear media bias and misconception in representing our deen. Women oppression. She's putting on the headscarf because her parents or her husband
Forcing her.
or oppressed her, for example. They terrify people about Sharia law. What is Sharia law, people? Sharia law is about social justice, is about actually fairness, about mercy, about, if you talk about the intent of this, it's actually, they try to misrepresent it and just present it to people as it's a scare tactic type of thing.
I was to say that.
So that's one other thing. We Muslims, even if we are born here and this is second, third generation, they are the foreigners, they are the strangers.
Yes.
And that label kind of, as I said, the politics, the official politics in general, sometimes marginalize the Muslim community. So these are very clear challenges.
Racism,
that we face in this country. And obviously, we need to deal with through multiple means that we can talk about. I don't know now, or we have another question. I don't know.
We have another question, but I mean, how do these impacts in the Muslim individuals?
Of course, they add a huge level of stress.
Yeah.
To Muslims. We are always on the defensive.
Defensive mode. Yeah.
We are not that bad people, please believe us.
But do you agree with me that this is regarding some ignorance of about Islam?
It is.
Yeah.
As I said, it's ignorance, or by design, or by lack of information. Sometimes by design through the media bias and the stereotyping, and there is a concentrated effort to make this deen look as such.
Yeah, but actually, when you deal with other people, especially people who don't know anything about Islam,
they definitely, if they get to know Muslims before they are exposed to all of this, definitely their action is quite
change
different.
their mind. Yes.
Yeah. So it adds a huge level of stress. It makes it difficult to assimilate.
Yeah.
It isolates us sometimes. It actually impacts our progress in the society at large,
Mhm.
there are, we are in California here in the West Coast. There is, at least when it comes to employment and whatnot, we are less, it's less problematic than, for example, East Coast,
Yeah.
where I witnessed, there is truly a glass ceiling for
Muslims.
foreigners in general and Muslim in particular.
Hmm.
For example, right? So you cannot advance regardless to your qualification.
Yeah. First, you are Muslim, so you are.
It's kind of, it's just one of the funny things in general, by the way. And again, I'm talking about Muslims from the Middle East at large. The Congress for many, many years classify Muslims from the Middle East as white male.
Mhm.
So I actually am working for one of the largest corporations in New Jersey without naming names. You feel like, okay, I'm not a white male who's playing golf on the weekends with these guys.
Mhm.
And I am not a Chinese woman who's being helped with affirmative action
Mhm.
to get promoted. So we were basically,
In the middle.
yeah,
Again.
yeah, we're being victimized in every direction,
Yeah.
basically. And these policies also, so it prevents you from taking your rightful place and development and growth in the workplace, for example.
Mhm.
There is so many challenges, obviously, we are facing with
Especially women, I believe.
women is even much more, because they are in your face through their, hijab and through their, dressing and whatnot. It is a challenge
Mm.
that we face in the workplace. We face
Daily
in,
life.
yeah.
So, how do Muslims respond to Islamophobia in their daily lives, whether at school or in the public spaces?
Huge efforts are needed
Yeah.
on many fronts. So, for example, when you talk about schools, I really think Muslim parents on individual level and on an institutional level need to take a proactive role.
Mhm.
They need to volunteer in schools. We need on an institutional level to make sure curriculums, especially middle school and high school, talk about Islamic history or Islamic theology or whatever, are being presented in a fair manner, because education of this society at large, Muslim and non-Muslim, and getting them a fair representation of Islam
Mhm.
is very important. More and more, second generation Muslims need to become, we have enough doctors and lawyers, respectfully. We need journalists. We need people in the media
In the media, yes.
that can present a more fair representation of the Muslims at large.
Mhm.
We have the use of social media, obviously, for advocacy. Interfaith is another one. There should be a coherent efforts at targeting the different parts of society at large to really present it. Plus, of course, on the individual level,
Yes.
a lot of people don't understand this. Every Muhammad and Ahmad and Mahmoud and whoever Muslim walking is being looked at as a representation of Islam.
Yes.
So we need to embody, ethical values and manners, and that is true to our faith. Because if we deviate from that, we are really turning people away from the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah, and we need to tell our kids that you are a messenger of Islam.
Every one of us,
in your
young
place.
and old, male and female, we are messengers, whether we choose to or not.
Mhm.
And so individual efforts, media, advocacy, interfaith, education. I'm happy, for example, I don't know if you follow, we have started to see in the last 10 years or so, arts always play a key role in a society. We start to see films, that documentaries and whatnot, that are presenting different aspects of Muslim faith and causes
Mhm.
in a light, in a fair light, in a fair manner.
Yeah.
So again, media, arts, films, social media.
And even now
It-
on social media, it's very famous. Some of
Correct.
the famous Muslims,
Exactly.
influencers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of these are things we can do to impact and make a change,
Mhm.
dealing with these Islamophobic trends.
So how about the response if you face this Islamophobia or stereotypes?
Mm.
How to reflect or how to respond in this?
Mm. There are many ways. I'm going to again start with a personal experience.
Mhm.
So when I came to New Jersey in 1982, I was ranked like 8 out of 450 in engineering schools.
Mhm.
But at that time, there was no internet. No one recognized my engineering degree. So I couldn't work as an engineer. So I remember I decided that if I cannot be an engineer, I'm going to stay in the field to get practical experience.
Mhm.
So I remember the very first job, January 83, I accepted the job as a technician, radio frequency technician,
Mhm.
and $6.25 an hour. I still
Oh.
remember that. It
Yeah.
was okay money then.
Mhm.
Funny thing. So just to explain the workspace and how you're dealing with it. So I work as a technician, and when this is your first job ever, you are eager to prove yourself.
Yes.
You really are trying your heart out to make an impact. So I was working with those radios, tuning them, fixing them. These are radios for small aircrafts and transponders and things like that. And my immediate boss was a guy named Vince, and he hated my guts
Mm.
from day one. And we were sitting, I mean, the technician sat on a lab benches next to each other. And, there was like 3 or 4 people hired at the same time. They were all white, whatever, except me. And in the first few months, he was a quality control. Every work has to go through him.
Mhm.
He rejected everything I do. And doesn't matter how good work I do, it was always bad. To the point where I used to spend 8 hours working with my ears red, and I'm about to cry from stress.
Mm.
Talk about, you're just a kid, 22, coming, and trying
Yes.
to
Prove yourself.
prove yourself. However, that scrutiny made my work at much higher level than all
Yes.
the other guys.
Because you're doing your best.
Because he challenged me, and
Yeah.
now I have to rise to the occasion. So when there was a downturn, for example, a lot of these guys were actually let go, but not me. When he was sick for a month or something, I took over his job.
Wow.
And later they gave me his job permanently. So sometimes discrimination pushes you to excel.
Mhm.
Sometimes we also have ادفع بالتي هي أحسن.
Yes.
Sometimes dealing with discrimination through kindness is a good thing, but it doesn't work all the time. Now we have legal means for discrimination. We have institutional, like organization like CARE and whatnot,
Yeah.
that actually help us sometimes deal with this. I talked about, again, how to deal with discrimination or expose discrimination through social media, how to deal with it through education, how to deal with it. Uh, there is so many. Now we have other venues,
Yes.
to-
Other channels.
other channels
Yeah.
that actually we have a just cause when we are being discriminated against.
Mm.
And by the way, one of the things I say we Muslims need to do a better job. We need to stand for social justice against any segment of the society, not just Muslims.
Yeah.
So if our African American brothers, or if our Latino brothers,
Mm.
or whoever is being subjected to any insults or discrimination,
We have to support.
we have to support them. This is a universal value, not just applying to ourselves. We are not, just selfish
Or also in a bubble. No.
in a bubble. Yeah. So we really, قتلت يوم قتل الثور الأبيض, meaning
Yes.
You understand what
Yes,
that means?
exactly.
You know, if every group just worry about itself, it's much easier to discriminate against versus if we unite forces.
Mhm. Yes. So if you let me also give you my personal experience about Islamophobia, and you know that in the Southern California, we don't face normally the
Mhm.
discrimination or something like this. But as you know, my wife is wearing niqab. So the first time we came here in California, we went into a store and there were two women. One of them, I believe she don't know anything about Islam, but once she saw my wife, she was terrified. She was scared, and
SubhanAllah.
she's looking to her as she gonna kill her. So I was very angry actually.
Mm.
My wife, in opposite, she went to buy a bar of chocolate,
Mm.
and then she presented to her, and she said, "Good morning. I just
Mm.
want to give you this gift." And then we go to the parking lot, and the two ladies follows us, and they apologize for what they did. So
SubhanAllah.
I like this
Yeah, you
situation
see, as
actually.
I said, ادفع بالتي هي أحسن. You know, I tell you one other thing. Wallahi,
Mm,
you know, I don't think actually we are the U.S. in general population,
mm,
being a melting pot from many nationalities,
mm.
have much less discrimination in comparison to other Western societies like in France or
Europe,
Germany
yeah.
or whatever.
Mm.
And I gave you an example of what you call a negative experience, right? The same company I work for, I'm going to give you two examples of positive experience,
Mhm.
right? So, for example, this was a company, privately owned company, 25 people or so. And the owner of the company, the president and the owner, his name is Ed. You know, one time he was passing by and it was Zuhr time. So I used to go in a room in the back in the assembly area. It has like a vibration chamber and whatnot. I used to put some newspaper and pray Dhuhr.
Mhm.
So he passed by and he saw me doing these strange things. He never saw a Muslim
Strange
pray
movement.
before.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking about 1982 and whatnot. So he told his secretary, whatever he's doing, let him come to my office afterwards. So now I'm just a technician. He's the president of the company, the owner, right? I'm terrified. I'm going there. So he said, Mohi, what did you do? So I said, this was my break and I was praying. I have to pray 5 times a day.
Mm.
So he said, oh, I feel very ashamed of myself that we let you pray in newspaper. I'm going to tell them to put a nice carpet for you
Mhm.
in that place. You know, you see how he reacted.
Yes.
You know, so I still remember that very vividly. And wallahi, because of such act of kindness, my productivity and my support of the company increased tenfold. Then he repaid me later when I was doing my master. He literally made the company resources support my project thesis, my graduation
MashaAllah.
project.
Yeah.
And you know, I was building a piece of an instrument, and the whole company was
Supporting
ordered
you.
to help me build this in the company time or the company resources. So there is always these examples,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
not always
it
bad
is not
experience.
always
Yeah.
bad experience.
Yeah.
Just to be fair.
So what role can media and education play in combating Islamophobia and correcting false stereotypes?
Islamophobia is being created today to a large extent because of media,
Mhm.
and that is, as I said, we need to really find ways to penetrate this information organization with younger generation being journalists and writers and filmmakers and to be able to present a more balanced narrative.
Or to correct the bad
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
bad experience about Islam
Just
or
to be
bad
fair
image.
and present a more balanced view of the Muslim at large. That will take time because even with that happening, which is happening, slowly, the heads of this organization have an agenda.
Mhm.
So I think, like, for example, with the Gaza war, Muslims have found a way to bypass the official media altogether and bring the truth to the population at large through social media, especially platforms that have no agenda, that is not controlled
Just
by political policies that try to suppress the news. So that's definitely one of the ways to deal with that. As I said, education is super important. High schools and middle schools and colleges, and social studies and Islamic studies courses and whatnot. Really, we need to put a lot of effort to make sure they present a balanced view to the students at large, because it starts with education.
yes.
If they are learning at young age that these guys are bad guys, it will stay with them forever.
And these students in the future will be
The leaders of the
yes,
society.
exactly.
So education is critical, and us being able to uh, reach out to teachers and impact curriculums and whatnot is very important for combating Islamophobia in general. We talked about individual engagement, where everyone, through his ethics, through his morals, through his values, try to combat what they're hearing in the media through personal interaction with his neighbors, with his coworkers, and whatnot. These are some of the things. Again, advocacy, interfaith, all of these things help bridge the gap and deal with Islamophobia.
And I believe recently when the media play a big or important role, especially in Gaza war, the society was afraid because the new generation now understand the truth,
Correct.
and this generation is the leaders in the future. So what are you doing? You're changing our society
Exactly.
to
And
the good way that we don't want it.
that's why they try to ban TikTok, for example.
Exactly, yes.
Because you cannot control the platform and
Mhm.
what messages goes on it, as an example.
Mhm.
So definitely suppressing the message or trying to just give a single narrative through official media have failed.
Mhm.
And that's why millions of people around the globe view of what's going on has changed.
Yes. So moving to the final segment, that finding community and support. So how important it is for a Muslim in Western society to have a strong, supportive communities, and how do these communities help in facing challenges?
You know, just we have to remember that the first thing Rasulullah SAW did when he go to Al-Madinah, he built not one masjid, two masjid, Quba and then Al-Masjid
Yes.
al-Nabawi.
Mhm.
So, building communities and Islamic centers and whatnot, this is a home away from home.
Mhm.
And it is super important for many reasons we can outline that, so Islamic institution, Islamic centers, mosques, and even like, one of the things I remember, one of the reason I moved to a certain neighborhood in Irvine was we were about 10 families with about 30 kids who used to go to the same elementary school, the same middle school, the same high school. That gave them confidence.
Mm.
If just imagine you have your son is the only Muslim kid in his class. That's a terrible situation, by the way.
So actually, this is the first question I ask my kids when they go to school: how many Muslim in your class?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So definitely, I talk about us being social beings.
Mm.
So we also need to create, in schools, like even in the high schools and whatnot, MSAs play a very important role.
Yes, I agree.
I tell you one again funny thing. My son was in Northwood High School, and it was after September 11.
Mm.
Now, we as parents were terrified, and now Muslims obviously were like looked very badly upon, right? So our instruction to our kids, just keep a low profile, right? That's our natural thing to protect them.
Yes.
It was the same maybe month he started MSA in high school. So they actually
Started in this.
went on the opposite
Yes.
direction, where they said, okay, we're not going to take this. We're going to actually organize and present
Islam in a good way. And support
as an
Muslim
example.
students.
So, which again talk about how this younger generation can be much better than our generation sometimes.
Yes.
In their forward-looking thinking, in their not being fearful in your face kind of thing, confident about their identity and whatnot.
They are courage.
Yes.
Yeah.
So definitely, the more we have these institutions in place, the obviously, I mean, and by the way, not just these institutions. Now we have so many other what you call institutions that addresses different acts, different topics beyond education and Islamic education and faith. Like, for example, we have a Muslim aid or Muslim legal aid and care and whatnot. So now we have legal, we have advocacy, we have some
in different fields,
immigrations. We have many Muslim charities that are focused on good causes, whether the victims of the calamity are Muslims or not. So all of these are very important organizations that we need to keep creating, because it fundamentally change the image and it gives us the support at the community to move forward with confidence.
That moves us to the next question. So as I believe that you're involving in many Islamic centers, so how can Muslim contribute positive Western society while staying in their Islamic values, and what is the role of the mosques and Islamic centers in helping Muslim maintaining their faith and connected to the Western society?
Okay, maybe we'll start with the second part and then we'll go to the first part.
Okay.
So we come from societies, at least first generation again, where masjid was to a large extent a place of rituals. But historically, even from the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the masjid was actually the center of everything, for politics, for war management, for finances, for socializing, for family, for youth education. And I am happy actually to see that many of the Islamic centers in the US is actually playing that vital role. So yes, they offer a place of worship, but they offer Islamic education to different groups and different segments and ages and whatnot. They offer a social venue for young and women and old people, and different group of people. They offer, actually also playing a role in reaching out to the larger society through interfaith and open mosque days and for advocacy, for social justice. So the masajid are playing a lot of good role.
And recently politics.
As I said, social justice and whatnot, right? And then you have also the charitable element, where, for example, many of the masajid, they do homeless feeding, for example, or other, to Muslims and non-Muslims alike, using both sadaqah and zakah fund, and playing a positive role in the society at large. Muslims are very charitable people, alhamdulillah.
Yes.
And so all of these, you find that these centers are playing the role that should be played.
Yes.
Not just being focused on 5 prayers and go home.
Yes, only for prayer, and it's musalla, not
it's
masjid.
Musalla. Exactly. So alhamdulillah. So we are, most of the Islamic centers in the US at least are evolving
Returning
to
to
this.
the
And
true rule.
not only that, now you find them, sports tournament. They try to have space for weddings and funerals. They have, space for the youth to hang out, or cafes, or so these are good things, as I
Even
said,
stores now.
or stores.
Yeah.
To me, and as I said, to make this a home away from home. And I think, alhamdulillah, that's a positive trend, that schools, of course, and all of that. So in that sense, I feel our Islamic institutions are moving in the right direction.
Yes, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So, what advice you give to Muslims struggling to find their place in Western society, especially those feeling isolated or conflicted about their identity?
So it is not a good feeling to live on the margin of any given society, being isolated, or being, just feeling you don't belong here. Because we as beings, we need to feel we're adding value. Our days on this earth are numbered.
Yes.
And it should be measured by what contribution we bring, to our faith and to the people around us. So I would say, probably one of the first, we need to understand why people do so, why people feel isolated and whatnot. One aspect of it is language barrier. So I would say, it doesn't matter what's your age. There are people here who are here for 20 years who refuse to learn English. And not Muslim only, there is Latinos and others. That's bad. We really need to put the effort. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, for example, he asked, I think, Mu'adh to learn Hebrew.
Yes.
And he learned the language in 18 days, because to have to communicate with the people around it. So this was an instruction from the Prophet, right?
Yes.
So we really, the first part to overcoming isolation is to overcome the language barrier. That is very important. The second way to really break this cycle of isolation, find a venue to volunteer. There are very good causes that a Muslim can contribute to. There is food banks. There is organization that build homes for the homeless. There is many good causes.
And even Islamic centers also offered some opportunities.
But I'm talking about isolation, how to, because actually sometimes there are people who isolate themselves where they only interact with few Muslims in the Islamic center.
Yes.
But in my definition, they're still isolated.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried
to
about
open to the whole society.
Yeah. So I think, volunteering, overcoming the language. One of the things actually I have learned through my years here, because even your English is still broken and whatnot. Actually, the society at large, they prefer that you communicate with them, even with broken English, than if you are silent and don't say anything.
Yes.
So
they're trying to understand you and helping you.
Exactly. They appreciate the efforts of any form of communication, which is actually very positive. They don't mock you. They don't, discourage you. So these are, one other reason sometimes people feel isolated is depression and mental illness. So that's one other thing, alhamdulillah, I start seeing also many of the Islamic centers starting to deal with and offer is mental service help or, counseling help, because, it's a real issue sometimes to deal with. And people require a helping hand to overcome that sense of isolation. Sometimes the form of isolation is because, despite our efforts, the schools, as I said, are focused on individualism. So our children are not as attached to their families as we used to be attached to
yes.
our families. So the parents are feeling more isolated even within, as they get older, within the family
Yeah.
environment. So there is a lot of things that can be done to try to
Not to be isolated.
yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Sheikh. Before we wrap up, I want to give a heartfelt thank you for our guest today,
Oh, yeah.
Sheikh Mohi, and your experience and wisdom and insights have shed light to realities of being Muslim in Western society. And thank you for your time, your thoughtful contributions, and for helping tackle such an important and timely topic. We hope to have you back again, more discussions in the future.